Alright, what is up, you guys? I am Vincent, and welcome back to another video. First thing I want to do for you guys is just say that, um, I'm sorry. I'm going to address my absence for being away for about a week. I've been on vacation with my dad and my uncle and my brother. We went down to Destin, Florida, and we all had a really good time. So that is why I haven't made a video in about a week. Um, I'm planning on doing more when I go home, but they're going to be less frequent because I've got to start back school in about 2 days. Um, Technically, it's going to be. Today is Friday. Yeah, I've got to start school back in like 2 days. It's going to be one when y'all see this video because I'm going to upload this tomorrow. Whenever I wake up, which is going to be around 9, 10, somewhere around there. Um, but as you can see by the soon-to-be thumbnail, this video is going to be very different um, than any other video that I've done on this channel before. Um, this is going to be a history of the White Star Line ships from about 1887 all the way to their last ship, the MV Georgiak, which was made in 1932, I should say. Launched, not made, launched in 1932. Um, Now, most of my subscribers are family and friends, so a lot of y'all are going to know that I have an extreme love for steamships. I've studied these ships since I was about 5, 6 years old, and I've pretty much just been following their stories, reading various Wikipedia articles, Britannica.com, stuff like that. And I've learned some pretty interesting facts that I would love to share with you guys on today's video. It's going to be a bit longer because I'm going to be providing commentary like I am now. Um, Another thing I want to address is that some of these I'm going to skip over because I don't know the history of the ships because there are so many that some of these ships I won't really know the backstory or the history of. But I'll try to give you all the best information that I can. But some of them I'm just gonna have to skip over. Anyway, without any other stalling, let's begin. Okay, so this is the Royal Mail steamer RMS Atlantic. She was not the first White Star Line ship. She was one of the early. She was one of the earlier ships. The first one on this list. As you can see, she has sails, which in the early days of the White Star Line, they had quite a few ships that had sails along with steam engines, because around this time, sails hadn't exactly been phased out. Steam engines were still pretty new. Boiler explosions were still very, very common around this time. So people, understandably, weren't really too keen in Britain about having steamships. So they opted to use sails as well because the White Star Line ships, they're known for being fast. They're known for they were known for being some of the fastest ships out there for their time. Um, the most notable being the RMS Titanic, which was one of the fastest, most luxurious, and one of the biggest ships in the world by the time of 1912. Um, but we're going to focus on the Titanic later. Right now, let's talk about the Atlantic. She was launched in around 1873. Um, I don't really know much about her early history. I do know that around this time, cameras were not common at all. People did not own cameras. And now, if there were cameras, they were in very, very big cities, and they were like these really big cameras that you had multiple parts to. Um, and it would take a it would take a really long time for a photo to be developed in this time period, because it's the 1800s. People don't have smartphones, so um but photos took a long time to develop. So with the complications of not having proper camera equipment uh, by the time she was built, and just people not being of the rich class, most people in the cities and in the countryside not being of the rich class, only those select few people who were very, very rich got to sail on these ships, got to actually photograph them, which there are no existing photographs of the Atlantic. They did have a journalist who sailed on the Atlantic, but he unfortunately died on the ship when it hit some rocks. So, if the ship were to continue service, he we probably would have gotten some surviving photographs of the Atlantic, possibly of her interior, her top deck, maybe stuff like that. Now, um, she had a very, very long career. From I only know that she was launched in 1873, but she did hit rocks off of Nova Scotia, which is close to Canada. None of the crew on this ship at that time knew the coast very well. They were around 2 miles offshore when they hit the rocks. Nobody except, I think, the tiller officer knew the area well, and the tiller officer tried to warn everybody in the crew. He tried everything in his best power to make sure that this ship didn't hit those rocks, but unfortunately, it did, and every single person on this ship, including two newborns, died. There were no survivors. There were only, I think there were only three crewmen that survived and one child. There were a lot of children on this ship. I don't know how many, but keep in mind that there was only one child that survived, and that's very, very disheartening for the families.
From this far
Okay. Um, I let this video go for a long time because a chunk of those ships I really don't know the history of. A lot of those I didn't know the history of, so I skipped over a bunch of those, and I was also making up for lost time because I spoke a lot about the Atlantic and what happened with that ship. So I was kind of making filler for me talking so much about the Atlantic. Um, Now, you may be looking at this ship and wondering, man, why is he going over the history of this ship? It looks so small and insignificant, right? Well, I'm here to tell you, sorry, no offense, but you're wrong. Um, this little tender boat launched by the White Star Line was used to ferry passengers from the hotels in Southampton to the Titanic. So, um, the passengers, which were mostly steerage, were taken from the inner city to the Titanic to be boarded to be taken to New York, which hopefully most of the people wanted a new life in America. So, they were taken from Southampton, put on this little small ship, taken to the Titanic, which was supposed to go to America. Sadly, it never made it to New York City. This ship is actually still um not serviceable, but you can still visit the ship in Belfast. It's in Belfast. You can still visit the ship, and you can actually walk around inside of the ship, and you can see the benches where the third class passengers sat as they were making their way to the Titanic. So it's pretty cool and it's pretty surreal. If I can find some pictures of the interior from like uh this year or maybe further back, I'll be sure to link those in the description if I find any. And here we have the Olympic. This is the first of the big three, as they were called. The Olympic, the Britannic, and the Titanic were all launched around the same time period. Um, and the Olympic and the Titanic were actually built right alongside each other. So, if you look at books and pictures and clip arts, you can see you've got the Titanic and it's just her inner structure. Then you've got the Olympic, which is a little further along. It's this big white ship, and it was getting pretty close to finish. They were actually planning on launching it, I think, a few months after that photo was taken. Um, but this is the Olympic in 1910, uh, shortly after she entered passenger service. Um, Around 4 years later, the First World War broke out, and um, in a few seconds, you're going to see her in her Dazzle paint camouflage, which was used throughout the entire war for her war service. This was the entire paint scheme that she used during the entire war. Um, and you were going to see that in a couple of seconds. Never mind. Maybe it'll come up in a little bit. Well, never mind. So I guess I'll tell you about it right now. Um, so the Olympic around 1914 was um, commissioned into war service. So she was painted into this dazzle camouflage paint scheme, which was to confuse German U-boats. Because if you were to paint a ship in this paint scheme, the Germans wouldn't be able to distinguish which part of the ship was the front and which part of the ship was the back. So they wouldn't be able to get their torpedo trajectory right, and they wouldn't be able to hit the ship, thus getting vital supplies, men, whatever they needed to where whatever supplies or men they needed to get that supplies or men safely to their destination. She was mainly used to transport troops to the Gallipoli campaign, um, and she was involved in an incident where she rammed a U boat, actually cut her clean in half. The crew of the U boat blew her ballast tanks and scuttled the U boat, and the Olympic just kept on going, just kept on trucking, and um, she was fitted with, I think it was some kind of guns. I don't remember what caliber, but she was fitted with anti-aircraft guns, and she did have some moderate defense on her bow here. Um, but that's about it for the Olympics. Oh, another thing. She was captained by the captain of the Titanic, Captain Edward J. Smith. He captained the Olympic during her passenger service. During her first years of passenger service, then he was switched over to the Titanic, where he unfortunately passed away. Now, I'm not going to go over the story of the Titanic because pretty much everybody knows that one by now. Pretty much everybody who watches my channel has probably heard about it somewhere in school. So, I'm just going to not go over the history of the Titanic here. And this is the HMHS Britannic. Fun fact, HMHS stands for Her Majesty's Hospital Ship. She was launched in 1914 and shortly after was commissioned into hospital ship service. She did not serve a single commercial vessel before World War I started. She was launched, and then shortly after, she was turned into a hospital ship. She struck a mine off the island of Key, and the captain attempted to beach her on the little island of Key, which didn't turn out very well because as they were launching the lifeboats, mainly the stern most lifeboats, as they were being launched, they were getting sucked into the propellers, and the lifeboats were getting smashed. So you could imagine how that would have turned out for the passengers of the lifeboats. Now, that only killed about 30 people, so at least it wasn't like the Titanic, which lost around 1,500. That is not an actual photo. I don't think they took photos of the ship as it was sinking. Okay, and this is the RMS Georgia, which was built around 1932. You can see in the bottom right corner, she was built around 1932. Now, around this time, if you've done your history, if you studied your history, you would know that America was suffering from the Great Depression, which is when the stock market crashed and everybody was really, really poor, including the White Star Line. Every country was affected by the Great Depression. It didn't just affect the U.S. And it's also affected one of the biggest shipping companies in Great Britain, that being the White Star Line. They built this last ship and shortly afterwards went bankrupt due to the Depression, and she actually served from the 1930s all the way to 1956 when she was scrapped. that was long. 20 minutes. Um, I'll try and link some of that stuff in the description. For y'all to look at for pictures and stuff. But that's gonna do it for this video, guys. I will see y'all later.